What was the one that clicked? It was a leg show, wasn't it?
No, it was a leg show. It was Warrior's Husband.
And you showed the marvellous legs. Did you know you had good legs? Were you objective about that?
I think they were all okay. I think all of me was okay. I didn't object
It was
to
always
any of it.
exceptionally fine, and especially the teeth. But the legs were a great attention getter.
Yes,
weren't
lots
they?
of teeth. But, say, jaws. But I look at people who suddenly smile and I think, there I go. Terrible sight. Didn't think about it particularly.
Yeah, but there was a Hollywood scout who did, wasn't there? And you started getting the invitation from Hollywood. Did you want to be a movie star, or was it second
I
best?
wanted to be William S. Hart,
The cowboy.
Tom Mix, yeah.
You wanted to be a male movie
Any
star.
of those. I really wanted to ride that horse, you know.
Was it second best for you, Hollywood, after Broadway?
No, first best.
Straight away, huh?
Yes, because I don't think it's terrifying, you see. I think the theatre is absolutely terrifying. And I came back several times only to be kicked. But I think the theatre, you really have to deliver the goods. I think the theatre is much more difficult.
How did you handled Hollywood before you how did you have the nerve or the gumption or the combination of these things to haggle over a contract when you hadn't even been there yet? Because they offered you a certain amount of money and you asked for more. Did you figure out that's the way to handle them?
Spike up their interest.
Did you arrive in Hollywood in style? When you stepped off the train?
I stepped out of the train. I had a steel filing off the rail, 2 steel filings in my eye, and I looked as though I'd been drunk for a week. Jack Barrymore came down just to say, how do you do? And he came in and said, a wonderful test, and all the politeness. And then he looked at my eyes and he said, oh, yes. He said, come with me a minute, dear. And I went out into the hall and he said, I have something that'll stop that right off. I said, Mr. Barrymore, I have something in my eye. And he said, yes, sir, I know. He said, try a few drops of this. Turn his red eyes white. So, you know, then the long story of the doctor, well, it goes on anyway. They got better.
There are stories about Barrymore that sometimes he was too kind to the recently arrived.
No, he wasn't
really
to me. To me, he was very nice to me. And he sort of held me in position, and I think he thought at one point that I'd given him an invitation, and then he realized I hadn't, and he said sorry.
How come you resisted all the razzmatazz that practically anybody else in your position would have been swept away by?
I thought if I'm a success, it's one thing, but if I'm a flop and I've had all that publicity, it will be really wreck my life. You know, so that I refused to give interviews.
So it was a strategy.
And when I did, well, I just thought, why should they advertise something that the public hasn't said, oh, we rather like her, you know, or the critics. Nobody had said anything. I didn't want to be pre-sold.
But it was the beginning of a long Hepburn tradition, wasn't it, of telling the press as little as possible?
You get sweeter as you get older.
But you didn't do it just out of lack of sweetness. It was a
No, I
strategy.
mean, I think I did it with good sense. It was very good sense. And I mean, the personal life, I don't think that's anybody's business. Then you get to the point in life where you think, well, that's rather interesting. I did do that, and you're looking way back at somebody else.
But the press,
I've gotten to the point where the actor is not me, that's somebody else who's done quite well.
the press did find out that you'd been married, and you said you'd forgotten. Had you really forgotten?
No, of course not. I just thought it was none of their business. And I still think, you know, personal things are nobody's business. I never thought of marriage and a career could mix. I didn't know whether I was going to have any career. I think it's very difficult for 2 total interests to mix. I think the men have it lucky because they don't have the children. And I think the women are in a most complicated position because bringing the children up and doing as much slave work as you have to do today, I mean, it's tough to get nurses and someone who's really going to be responsible. And spoiling a husband, because that's what men expect. And it's what is, to me, is fun to do, to spoil someone. I think they're in a tough spot, the ladies, unless they go and get an nincompoop. Well, you know, they're in a tough spot. They are not men. And therefore, I think to be on the safe side. Now, there are many exceptions to every rule, but by and large, for a complete life, you can't be running in two directions.
Your third picture, Morning Glory, very early in your career, you won an Oscar. Were you playing a girl pretty much like yourself? Was
I
that
don't think so. No, I don't think so. I mean, she was poor. She wasn't arrogant. At least she didn't realize that she was arrogant. Just the way I don't realize that I'm arrogant, and yet I see signs of it every once in a while.
Why didn't you go to the Oscar ceremony?
Afraid I'd lose. Good reason. Might weep, but I can ask of myself.
So what happened when you won?
That's the only reason that I could think of as to why I don't go to the Oscar ceremonies, and I've gotten away with it. It's a poor excuse.
So that put you right on the crest of a wave. And you went back to Broadway with all this enormous...
Then I did Little Women,
Yeah.
which was a really good picture.
Crinoline.
And for which I should have won the award, you know, for the two of them, not just for one, because that was a difficult, not a tricky performance. It was a true American New England girl, and for which I think I was perfectly cast, she said modestly, but I do. And I think it's a memorable picture for which George Cukor should have gotten 20 awards. And then I came back. I don't know why I came back. I felt I should learn to act in the theater.